you all know what date it is. It's the February. Just by way of introduction, we got 15 people here, so this is probably going to make you feel a bit drunk. So hi everyone.
Hi.
Robert, you might not have met Andrew. Andrew's there. Probably you've spoken before. Kian, Unexpected Maker. We can do all the introductions here, but it's just nice to put some faces to the names. Anyway, welcome everyone. Some useful links for you, as usual. Sponsoring MicroPython is great. As I mentioned last month, GitHub's dropped PayPal, so starting tomorrow, they won't accept PayPal. So if you are a contributor, just remember to change that to a credit card or whatever else you can change it to. That'll be nice. We already know what the agenda is because Damien's already given us it. And Barry, thank you again. This slide's going to remain here until you stop doing the videos. So thank you very much. David Whale, who's the microbit wizard, self-named microbit wizard, he's been working with microbit for a long time. He's overseeing a project out of Harlow College in the UK, where he's having students work on a CubeSat, and the goal here is for them to make this CubeSat take photos of the Earth and beam them back down to the classroom. And so they're working on this for 2 years. They'll be working on it for 2 hours a week, give or take, trying to use as much off-the-shelf stuff as possible, make it reliable and cheap and easy to work on. They're going to start by going through a quadcopter, then a high-altitude balloon, and then finally into the CubeSat. So yeah, it was really, really cool project. Yeah, I was going to make a joke about hoping they don't fly the balloon over the US. We'll see how it goes. Also worthwhile, perhaps I'll show this later, but there's some performance optimization tips that David's been collecting. It's getting quite extensive now. I think it's, yeah, it's useful to share. He's just published that just before we went live tonight. So thank you, David, for that. The PyBricks Balance Bot. So Lawrence sent us a design last month for this, but I collected all the photos. These are all the parts you need to make a Lego powered balance bot. I've got a whole bunch of Lego here that we can use. I think I've got enough pieces to put this thing together. I haven't got the fancy blue colored Lego, but if you can get past the colors, I think we've got enough stuff here. Lawrence has also been good enough to take photos of all of the steps. Pretty straightforward. He's also given us some code to run on it. So you should get this thing standing up pretty readily. You might remember last month he demonstrated this and it fell off the table. But hopefully, please don't do that to my Lego. Sorry, sounds distracting me here because it's a really fancy new PCB, which I'll get into show later. Logic Kian, I don't know who this person is, but they're doing amazing work with FPGAs and MicroPython. Not worthwhile showing this animated later, but he's apparently doing some RISC-V stuff on FPGAs. So I believe he's built his own RISC-V core, and he's running MicroPython on that core. And he recently upgraded to 1.19, which was great because it was way back on 1.12. And he's just doing some really interesting things, like doing ray traces and driving that from MicroPython, but having it accelerated through the FPGA. It's all pretty interesting. And I also thought it was really cool. It might be a bit hard to see here, but at the top half of his display, he's got MicroPython code that he's entering into the system, and it just spews out all of the RV32 or all of the RISC-V assembly as it's being processed. So you can sort of see that he's matching it up correctly. It's really interesting. If you're interested at all in FPGAs, RISC-V, and MicroPython, any combination of those topics, you should go following on Twitter. Ollie and I had a session the other day where we ported the Adafruit CircuitPython Nunchuk library. So you got the Nunchuk here. So is it? No, let me just have up there. It's yes. You might be able to see it online, but there's a Wii Nunchuk, which you're all familiar with. This thing's got an accelerometer in it. It's got a couple of buttons and a joystick, and it's got data that comes out over I2C. It's all accessible over I2C. There's some registers you just query. Adafruit has done a great job of packaging a library for it. We just ported that to MicroPython using slightly different I2C commands. But we have a goal now because we've got an Adafruit library that works with the Nunchuk, and we've got a MicroPython library that works with the Nunchuk. What we'd like to do is carve out the part of Blinker, if those don't know, Blinker is a compatibility library that Adafruit provide that it gives all of their equivalent to the machine library access, or it provides those libraries on like single board computers as well as for MicroPython. So the idea is you can install Blinker on MicroPython and have a bunch of the CircuitPython APIs, particularly around I2C and SPI. There's a couple of things that's not quite working that well at the moment. So we'd like to take just that MicroPython part of Blinker out, make it its own MicroPython library. And then we'd like to be able to use MIP to install any of the Adafruit libraries, install Blinker as well as a dependency, and then we should be able to have access to any of the Adafruit libraries. I think it's a really nice goal to get to. We've got a bit of work to make all that happen, but literally Nunchuk is the first step in making that happen. So if anyone's just interested in that, come talk with me after. MIP, I'm going to keep repeating this for those that aren't aware. Use MIP, go use MIP for installing things. It's great. We've got a recording on Jim talking about MIP. Please go check it out if you're not aware of what it is. BLE, Damien's already talked about. Matt's new hardware. I do not have a lot. Oh, you've taken one of my only boards. Thank you. It's O1 Space's ESP32S3, which has got a little LCD on it. ESP32S3, and not much else. It's a tiny little board. This guy's also built a few of these little things, some with the RP2040, some with other ESP32s. It's neat. I like it. I've got two of them here if someone wants to play with the other one. Hardware news, M5 stamp. Everyone's getting into ESP32S3s at the moment. So the module from M5 stamp has come out. It's got 8 mega flash, a whole bunch of GPIOs, and they've gone with the option of optionally halving the what do you call it, the pin distance. So you can use the tiny little pins to break things out, or you can drop this onto a castellated design. But they've broken out a whole bunch of stuff. Or you can use, by the way, you can also use regular headers on this, and it just goes in every second pin. So you get half of the pins broken out, but you can use it in the regular breadboard. So it's a neat little module, dirt cheap, $7.50 US. Pretty cool. Seed are also getting in on the act as well. Their ESP32S3, they've chosen to build it around a high density connector with 30 pins broken out. They've also got a camera coming with this one. It's going to cost about 15 US. Also got an interesting backstory on how the thing was designed. So it's worth a look if you're interested in some of those decisions. Yeah.
Do they have any accessories with that bus header?
I don't think so, but it's still, this has only just been announced fairly recently. They still haven't announced the delivery date yet. They do have the camera. I'm not sure how it's connected, but it must be through this header as well. And this one comes with 8 meg of flash as well as 8 meg of PS RAM. We're going to see a bunch of ESP32S3s. It's a cheap, powerful little micro. But unstable, as these two were arguing about before. Everyone would have possibly seen the Raspberry Pi Debug probe. This is a $12 US kit to give you regular ARM debug access over SWD. It's also a USB serial adapter in general.
An irregular connector.
Over an irregular connector, unless you're using an RP2040, in which case it's like the same, I think. You can get them with the header soldered on, which fits straight in. Yeah. Reviews from Jeff and Kevin were quite positive. It's just a neat little device, cheap. It's not as full featured as a J-Link, for example, but if you're using primarily RP2040s and occasionally other ARM devices, it might be a neat one to have in the toolkit. And for even $20 in Australia, it's pretty cheap. Yeah, it's not quite as powerful as Blackmagic.
But you should be able to walk Blackmagic to it.
Sure. It's actually implemented with an RP2040 as well. So just for reference. Primarily released an update to their Badger, which is their e-ink badge device. This one's just the only real difference was the W, so it's now a wireless Badger. they also took the opportunity to add an RTC to it as well. Neat little device if you've got a need for it.
Did they use the standard wireless chip?
Yeah, they literally plonked a Raspberry Pi Pico W on it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Castellated it
Easiest way
down.
to do it.
Andy, if you're there, you might want to even talk about this. Andy sent me a link through to the Magic Bit, which is an ESP32 board aimed at education. Unlocking the Magic of Python for Kids was the subtitle. We've got a whole bunch.
Have a look. All I did was see it. Right, I didn't dig into it myself.
I'm sure I've seen this board before. Might have been a Kickstarter or something. But it's good to see them sort of elevated out, and they're selling these boards. They're selling them with packages for obviously for sort of educational groups. But the base board's about $50. Yeah, in this case, I guess you're paying a lot for the learning materials. So yeah, neat looking board. FOSDEM was a couple of weeks ago, I guess, which is a free open. It took me a while to figure out what it stood for. Free Open Source Developers European Meeting. And so it's held in Brussels annually. About 5,000 people attend. There were 2 MicroPython talks this year. An introduction of MicroPython, which is most people here probably be pretty straightforward. But Matt Booth also gave a really interesting talk about 3D graphics, real-time 3D graphics on an ESP32, which is worth listening. He was part of the, I think he was part of the group who built one of the badges. Okay, which badge it was, but yeah, neat. Someone's keeping an eye on the chat. It's really hard to watch. Well, just yell out someone if there's something I need to address that's been posted in the chat, please. The Tulip Creative Computer was released by Brian Whitman, which he's done a whole bunch of work to make this ESP32S3 board. There's another one. Output, like it has a frame. He's added a frame buffer. So forked MicroPython, sort of, because it's really just a copy of MicroPython and he's added to it. So we opened a ticket to see if it might be worthwhile actually officially forking it. But yeah, added a bunch of creative stuff like to do MIDI connections, and there's a frame buffer here so you can render it out to a display, as you can see here. It has USB support for keyboards. He's got his own board, which you can he's published all the designs for, all the codes available. Really interesting project. So I'm hoping he sort of comes along and pushes some of this upstream at some point. That'll be really cool. Yeah, go check that out. Sure looks interesting. Why did I leave this here? Oh, Kian, you're here tonight, so that's up for you. The other thing is I want to try and make this live as well. So I've got some ideas to. At the moment, this is just like a static output of the pinout of the Tiny Pico. It'd be really cool to update it so that as you configure various pins, it will change what gets spat out. Just to let you.
I wouldn't know what you computed it to.
Well, you can query for like the status of pins, like whether it's an out pin, in pin, PWM. And stuff.
Oh, right, but you couldn't, like, if you moved your SPI pins to a different set, you couldn't query that. Yeah.
Not sure yet. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you could show, but
Okay.
more than just being static, I thought would be it's an interesting idea to explore.
Yeah, maybe it'll go.
Kevin McAleer has been continuing to do stuff. So that was last month's update. This month there's a really good article on like easing servos. By that, ramping servos up to speed and down again, and various patterns that you can follow. And then he employed those to make his pancake bot, which actually flips his little pancake here. Well worth a watch. He's also got a couple of informative things like how potentiometers work and how ultrasonics work. And I guess his pride was the Bubo 2T, which was the little owl with lights in it and the eyes open and close and the beak opens and closes. It's a really cute little device with a steampunk sort of thing. So worth checking out. Final thoughts, Tilt Doom. We talked last month or the month before about an effort to get, it's a bit hard to see from this image, but it's a Lego block and actually having like a little LCD built into it so you can render the images that Lego used to statically print on it. Now we've got animations of those things. Well, someone's of course made Doom run on it. So we'll have it for that in just a sec. The other thing I thought was worth a look, which has nothing to do with MicroPython, but it's always good to think of what's come in the past. And Globus was a Russian analog computer that was used for quite a long time in the space program, and it basically rotated that little orb of Earth there the appropriate way so that cosmonauts could see where they were going to land or where they were. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. Hackaday did a whole thing on this. It was super interesting reading into that sort of stuff. So just quickly with Tilt Doom. Let's see if the Wi-Fi holds up. Skip forward to, well, you can see it's just literally a Lego block with power on it. This is transferring very well, but you get the idea. Literally has an accelerometer in there to detect which direction to go. I think there's touch sensors on the top to fire and to open doors. Very cute. And Globus, that's what the package looks like when it's assembled. And there's quite a good article about that. And that is all I have for you this time around. Oh, Ollie's got something happening. What are you? Okay, I'm going to point this at Ollie. I need the position.
What? You are not. Ah, you can sort of get the colors. I'm just proving that the Nunchuk actually does work. So it's now controlling the color of the LED.
That's very cute.
So,
yay.
Or it's just flashing randomly.
or it's just
Yeah,
flashing
yeah.
randomly. You'll never know.
Was that easy? Did you do that just then?
Yeah, it's very easy. The hardest part was trying to figure out what of this Matt's million boards, this board is, what is on it, and then what pins it is. So this is the QT RP2040 running latest MicroPython. MIP installed the Nunchuk library and then just modified our test library to test program to just change the LEDs. Hardest part was finding which pins the LEDs were attached to because there's multiple QT boards, which I didn't know. And they've got different pinouts. So check that.
The standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was like Matt was you're talking about the lack of standards around Grove connector.
Yeah, that is a bit of a gotcha. Can I pinch that?
Sure.
So there's a couple of connectors that are getting popular for peripherals. Grove is one of them. It's really hard to see here, but this is an M5 stack. It's quite a large, it's a JST connector. I can't remember which one it is. Sorry? XH, right. Just a 4-pin connector. And so it's really common to have I2C come out of these, but look carefully because some of them are actually, especially with like something like an ESP32, you can map anything to them. So some peripherals expect it to be UART or analog input or all sorts of weird, wonderful things. The other real gotcha is that some peripherals are 5 volt and some are 3V3. And so that's a pain in the neck. So like this ultrasonic sensor is a 5 volt device. It doesn't work when you plug it into a port that only supports 3V3. So like the Nunchuk one. Yeah. The other one that's getting really popular is the STEMMA QT, and it's got a couple of different names. It's a different JST SH. Much smaller, really cute little plug. And I spent a bit of time finding out you can get different connectors. So you've got Grove on one end and STEMMA QT on the other, and having a bunch of them handy is useful if you've got a bunch of peripherals.
STEMMA QTs are only supposed to be for I2C. You can obviously do whatever you want, but the standard is for I2C.
Yeah. That was a gotcha. What else was there? I think that's it. I'm going to stop talking now. Let's see if anyone's got questions. All done, all sold. Thank you, Andy. Yes, it was the EMF camp badge, and PyBricks was at FOSDEM as well. And yeah, I believe you went and spoke to them. Where can we access the slides? I will post a link somewhere. I'll post it at least at MicroPython Discord, the slides.
MicroPython had a nice little presence at FOSDEM in one of the buildings. We were the first stand as you walked in. And the Laurence and Christine, who's the local reseller for the PyBoard, were attending. I picked up a t-shirt and some stickers, and Laurent's had some really nice Lego demos that attracted a lot of attention. So that was cool. That building kind of had a lot of the open source hardware vendors. So Pine were in there. Trying to think what else. Bunch of embedded things like Home Assistant and stuff were all in the same area. So yeah, Laurent and I spent a couple of hours going to a few of the talks together. Yeah, it was good to meet folks in person. I couldn't actually get into the MicroPython talk itself because it was in the Python main room, and that just stayed busy all day. So there wasn't really any opportunity to get in. But yeah, it was good to see representation there.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a massive conference.
Yeah, I'd never been, but it's crazy. It's been going for 20 years, and I've been doing open source for about the same time, and I'd never been, and it's only over the channel from me. So yeah, it's huge. It's quite disorienting because it's on a university campus. So unless you know where you're going, then you're kind of just following the herd initially. But yeah, it was, as you say, it's many thousands of people for a long weekend. It was good.